What if I told you that your wife hating you could actually be the best thing for your marriage? Now, I know what you're thinking, Josh, how the hell could that be true? I get it. She's threatening to leave you. The disrespect is relentless. She's saying things that she's never said before, words that cut deeper than anything you've ever heard. Maybe she's even looked you in the eyes and said, I hate you. And right now, it feels like your world is collapsing. But what if this isn't the end? What if this is actually a turning point? Now, this video is going to be more than just the idea that the opposite of love is hate. It's about taking your situation with her that seems hopeless and completely turning it around so that the next time you guys have a blowout or even are just bickering under your breath at each other, you'll relax and know exactly how to carry yourself to eventually hold your own respect and also soften her in the long run. And to prove it to you, these clients both had their wives saying this to them.
We got to where we were going for dinner. While we're waiting for our table, I tried to put my hand around my wife's back and she moved away. This isn't good, but I did it again and she pushed my hand away. At that point, I said, okay, let's just go. I didn't want to be there. She didn't want to be there. I was embarrassed, hurt. We got in a big giant fight in the parking lot and she told me, I can't stand your touch. I effing hate you so bad, it makes my skin crawl, along with all sorts of other things.
Travis, we will never be back together. Over and over again, she would tell me that.
Then eventually this happened.
And she's literally just like, I love you. I want us to be back together. Can you please just give me a chance? I love you so much. It was just like, whoa, like, is this really happening right now?
She's planning stuff, or we're planning stuff together. That, for example, we've got a vacation next winter. She's making a conscious effort to do things together because we as a couple focused entirely on the kids.
Yeah.
Never had a date night, things like that. I mean, it was maybe once in 6 months.
So let's ask ourselves some better questions here. What does her hate actually mean? I mean, under the surface. Why do you think that because she says it's over, that it actually is? And if you had the ability to say and do the right thing at the right time to get her to come back, what would it actually be? Now, these are just a few of the questions that I'll answer today. Because once you understand what I'm going to show you, you'll be able to look at her in the eyes with all of her hate and anger, and you'll see the truth behind why she's really being like that. So let's jump in. Okay, so what does all her anger and bitterness and hate and resentment, what does it actually mean? Well, let me tell you through a story. Have you ever just been sitting there taking it from her and she's going on and on, and all you can think is, what is this really about? That's what my client Greg told me in our last session. So they were on vacation staying at Airbnb. Now, Greg was looking forward to the weekend for months at a time because the relationship's been a little rocky, right? Really rocky. And things were great for the first few days. I mean, they were intimate multiple times after a month or two of dry streak. They didn't have sex for a while and they were having fun. Greg thought this was the turning point of their marriage. That this trip was like the catalyst for them to be better again, until it all changed in an instant. So Greg wanted to go to the gym, right? And his wife wanted to go shopping. There was only one key to get inside the place where they were staying at. And it was like, he had to go through the garage. You couldn't just knock on the door. Well, Greg did get back on time before his wife, but he left his phone on silent. And he assumed his wife would get home around 3 p.m. because that's what she said. And so he looked at his phone at 3:15. He's like, oh shoot, I'm 15 minutes late. He leapt to his phone and saw 32 missed calls from his wife. And then there she was calling for the 33rd time. Nothing in him wanted to answer that phone. His heart leapt into his throat. And when he answered the phone, he was met with the loudest scream he's ever heard from his wife. He couldn't even make out the words. All he heard was, hate you, you always do this, and I can never trust you. He reluctantly went outside to see his wife in the car. And what followed was hours of hysterical screaming, accusations, attacks, disrespect, just downright vicious rage. All Greg could think of was, is this really that big of a deal? I mean, she was only waiting in the car for like 30 minutes tops. She could have went and got coffee. I would have went and got coffee. She could have got coffee. She could have watched videos on her phone. I mean, I know I did wrong, but was it this big of a reaction necessary? Well, all of that only sent his wife deeper into despair, right? Eventually putting them back into stage one, where she became apathetic and wanting a divorce. So what was actually going on here? Because if you've ever been like Greg, you are missing the point and the real message behind her rage. And if you truly knew that message, you would have the appropriate response to turn those moments into opportunities for deeper connection. So here's what her anger actually means. Look, it is never about the individual isolated incident, the thing, right? Most men take problems as these isolated things to solve, all right? This is because we're more logically inclined. It wasn't about Greg not answering the phone for 30 minutes. His wife noticed this pattern in him over years. This one incident called out multiple personality traits in him that made her feel unsafe. Greg saying he would answer and then not answering showed his lack of integrity that he showed across the whole relationship. Greg not being mindful to keep his phone on loud showed his lack of consideration for his wife. And then when she got angry and volatile, instead of validating and using the skills you're going to learn in a second, the 5 skills, he went into all 5 curses, being defensive, dismissive, intellectualizing, and I'll show you the other ones as well. Now here's the truth around Greg's wife in her own words about what happened. He said, Greg, you just don't consider me. I'm tired of this happening all the time, and I don't know or care anymore how many times it will happen again, because I know it'll never stop. You'll never change. And if I choose to stay with you, then I choose a lifetime of this happening over and over again. Play that back, because I'm sure every single wife of the guys in our program can relate to a statement like that. So let's talk about the 5 conversation curses that led you here. The second principle is that your ego led you here. Now look, now that you see why she got angry and what it's really about, let's show you how you can really own your ego to change those moments of turmoil and conversation chaos into ones of opportunities to draw you guys even closer together. Now, in particular, we've seen 5 key conversation or conflict curses, and Greg used all 5 in that conversation that day with his wife. I'll show you all of them and what he did, and then I'm gonna show you 5 turnarounds or opposites of those curses that you can use instead to create that connection. So the first one was defensiveness. He said things like, come on, it was only 30 minutes. I don't see why you're making such a big deal out of that. He also got angry and reactive, saying, Jesus, can you just stop yelling at me? You're overreacting like you always do. There's dismissiveness or minimization. He said, you could have just gone to the coffee shop or watched YouTube for 30 minutes. It wasn't that big of a deal. There's intellectualization. He said, logically, there's no reason to be this mad to this level. Like, I didn't kill anyone. And then finally, the final curse is shutting down or avoiding. That's just walking away or just agreeing with everything she says. Just internally, you are in that flight or fight response and nothing comes through. Now, all these curses stem from protecting yourself in conversation because you feel attacked. So here's what you have to do instead. Instead of getting defensive, you use extreme ownership and understanding. So the alternative response is, look, I see that this will really hurt you, and I get why it feels bigger than this, this singular moment because of the things I've done over the time. That wasn't my intention, but I can't understand how it felt like I didn't consider you. See there how you're really just taking her emotions, you understand them, and then you reflect them back to her. Instead of getting angry, you use grounded leadership. So the alternative response would be, I see that you're really upset, and I just want to understand, let's slow down. What's really underneath all this? Now, she may not respond to that one at first when she's really upset, but over time she will. Instead of being dismissive or minimizing, you use validation. So the alternative response here is, now, I realize now that this wasn't just about waiting in the car. It felt like other times when I didn't show up for you when you needed it, and that matters, and I want to be better, okay? By the way, as a side tangent here, this has to be authentic. You can't just say it to say it, otherwise she's gonna sense the inauthenticity. Instead of intellectualization, you use emotional connection. So the alternative response here would be, I get that this is not about logic. It's about how you felt in that moment. You felt abandoned, and that really hurt you. And I don't want you to feel that way anymore. And then finally, instead of avoiding or shutting down or getting overwhelmed in your own body, you use engagement, okay? Presence and engagement, more particularly. You're able to stay in the present moment. Recognize how your body language is, whether you're breathing deeply, whether your arms are crossed, open your body up. Take deep breaths in your nose and out your mouth. That'll help regulate your nervous system to get you to a point where you can use the other 4 skills that I just taught you. Okay, so for this final point, when I'm bringing the computer notes out, that it's a big deal. Now, I found this beautiful quote on hate that I want to share with you. Hate is just love that has nowhere to go. Don't know who said it, but I was really sitting with this quote for a while, and I was trying to understand what it really meant. Look, there are about 1,000 men in our program who are in stage 1 when they first come to see us. They waited way too long to save their marriage, and their wife got to the point of apathy where she exits the cycle of love and hate, right? Of the dual mind narrative of wanting it to work out and not wanting it to work out. And she completely went into just, I don't care about anything anymore. Those 1,000 men wish they would pay so much money to turn back the time to where their wife was yelling at them because she cared, right? She's still invested emotion in this relationship. I know you don't want to be disrespected. I know when it happens, it feels like death. She's attacking your ego. She's saying things where if a guy said that to you, you would physically fight that guy. I get that. And you have that emotional reaction. You're not going to hit her, of course not. But you had the same reaction, right? And so I get the anger and the pain that comes from that, but you hurt her. Underneath that anger, underneath that pain, underneath that bickering and bitterness, the eye rolls, there's pain, okay? But pain is vulnerable, and she doesn't feel safe enough to be vulnerable with you because you were once her bodyguard and you turned the gun on her, okay? You were her protector, and now you're the person that hurts her, right? You're supposed to cherish her, like cherish her like a, you know, like a little flower, right? There's like these flowers. This is actually a really good example. There's a whole vase I got Hannah here. These flowers are dying, right? And like, you know, when she was first with you, I know she was blossomed and beautiful, and over time now she may be stubborn, and maybe she's being that blossom beautiful flower with other people in her life and not with you, and she's just falling apart with you. And you need to see her as this delicate flower. I know she has thorns on her that can hurt you, right? Well, you got to be careful around that, and kind of, you know, sometimes she will prick you and hurt you, but underneath it, she does want your protection, and she's secretly hoping that you could see that. She really is. I would say the one thing that's holds back, I have a whole video on this, by the way, you can link it right here at the end of the video, you'll see it, but how ego is the number one thing that really gets in the way of guys saving their marriage is seeing past themselves and being able to recognize we all want to see the best in ourselves, and you know, when bad things happen to us, we want to say it's like the other person's fault, that's the victim, right? But being able to talk with an expert and have them show you these different things that your wife's been trying to show you, but in a more practical and logical and caring way, it'll hit you in a way that allows that transformation to occur. And that's what setting up with a call with our marriage evaluators do. We've taken thousands and thousands of calls. We see these patterns, and like clockwork, we're able to just identify immediately what the situation is, what the problem is, and how to overcome it. So the call is free. Fill out the application down below, but just make sure you're fully committed to making change and investing in yourself. All right. Thanks for watching. Here's the video on the ego, and I'll see you in the next one.